Hello friends, today we're going to start a deep dive into the YA genre. Where it started, how it's evolved, how it's progressing, and so much more. For this first video, we'll be asking the question, what is YA? I've been itching to get into a new educational deep dive on this channel for a while now. And as someone who would primarily at this point be labeled a YA author, I thought it would be fun and really interesting to dig into the history of the genre and analyze its path through the world. YA is a unique genre in that it's kind of divisive, isn't it? Like with any other genre, there's an image associated with the YA author, but the feelings around that image can be quite extreme, ranging from passion and excitement to straight-up hatred. All that being said, it can be a bit hard to define what YA even is, as it is an age label rather than a content label. So what definitively is YA? According to the Young Adult Library Services Association, a division of the American Library Association, YA books are those aimed at kids aged 12 to 18 years. In most cases, the protagonist of the novel also falls within those age ranges, and the story is told through teenage eyes. The end. Except not quite. For anyone who has actually read YA, it's pretty clear that that's not all there is to the category. To give you a hint at what I'm getting at here, I have one acronym for you. ACOTAR. A Court of Thorns and Roses, the insanely popular series by Sarah J. Maas, is one of the top where YA is concerned right now. Various books from the series have won the Goodreads Choice Award for Best Young Adult Fantasy and Science Fiction twice. They have also been recognized by Bustle in their list of 25 best YA books of 2015, BuzzFeed in their list of 28 of the best YA books released in 2017, Business Insider in their list of 21 best young adult romance books to read in 2021, the best YA books of 2015 and 2016 by Pop Sugar, and many more. So it's safe to say that ACOTAR is considered a YA read. But here's where it gets a bit murky. Protagonist Feyre starts the series at age 19, putting her out of the general range of the YA protagonist. And the series is notorious for its, smut. In case you need an example, we have Wholly naked, I watched as he unbuttoned his pants and the considerable length of him sprang free. And paint soaked into my hair, my arms, but all I could think of was his mouth as it lowered to my breast and sucked, his tongue flicking against my nipple. Okay, so who here thinks that's appropriate for a 12-year-old to read? Personally, I do not. Now, sex in YA is whole rabbit hole on its own, and I do plan on doing a dedicated episode to the topic in the future in this series with my thoughts on it, but for now, let's just leave this here as an example of the types of books that are labeled YA but should not necessarily be YA, therefore confusing what the designation even is. ACOTAR is fine for someone who, like the protagonist, is 19 years old, which technically makes it decidedly not YA. However, it is still classed as such. So what do we do with this? Sound a war cry and force the literary world to be more stringent with its classifications and adhere to that solid definition of 12 to 18-year-old protagonists with readers to match? Honestly, in the case of ACOTAR, I would say probably yes. Look, kids are always going to get a hold of stuff that they shouldn't necessarily see, but the very least we can do is ensure that it's not marketed towards them in the media. A bit of sex education is good in books, inclusion of various sexualities for those who may otherwise not feel included, yes. However, it doesn't need to be smut. But given that this, war cry isn't really happening and the landscape is what it currently is, as writers, we have to be aware of this and at times wonder, how did we get here? So since the established definition of YA doesn't necessarily fit, let's try to come up with our own. According to MIT, a large and relatively new body of research is revealing that young adulthood is a time of dramatic change in basic thinking structures as well as in the brain. Consensus is emerging that an 18-year-old is not the same person they will be at 25, just as an 11-year-old is not the same as they will be at 18. They don't look the same, feel the same, think the same, or act the same. Across theories and research frameworks, a sequence of developmental shifts emerges, which can be organized into 3 overall categories. Adolescence, which is generally defined as puberty through age 18. Young adulthood, generally defined as 18 to 22 or 25. And later adulthood, which is generally defined as mid-20s and older. And I think this is really interesting, as much of my personal thought and reflection has recently revolved around the fact that one's brain does not fully develop until age 25. If you are over that age, look back and think on what you were doing up until that age. Did you feel fully developed? I certainly didn't, even though society was largely telling me that I was at 18. Things only really started to make sense in my later 20s and sort of hit harder in my 30s. I feel like me now, and I'm turning 35 next month. Looking, therefore, at these 3 categories of development, it makes sense that we would separate adult or teen literature from young adult literature, and I'll just say the term now that new adult literature could cover that phase of new later adulthood. Heck, it even creates a proper home for ACOTAR. And though my own writing is not remotely smutty, I actually feel more comfortable calling my writing new adult, since my protagonists do verge on that 18-19 line, and it separates my works from the legitimate YA writing that often has a very teen Twilight vibe. And if you're a fan of Twilight, just accept it now that I am going to use it to define bad YA through this series, and that's not going to change. Sorry, it's not personal. I'm sure there are lots of things that I like that you find terrible, and that is okay. Moving on. The California State University of Long Beach expands the age range of YA, perhaps with series like ACOTAR in mind, to describe young adult literature as books written for an audience of 12 to 20-year-olds, which may also include books primarily written for adults but which have appeal to younger readers. And this is enforced in a Reddit thread on r/writing, where a number of community members discuss whether young adult is or is not a misnomer. The original poster, Fearseal, debates how in Erikson's stages of human development, YA encompasses age 19 to 40, making them think that YA should be for readers in their 20s and 30s. However, much of YA out there in the world is aimed at teens. Through the conversation, other community members weigh in and largely agree that the term is a marketing label, which is really a vanity term to cover teen lit, working under the assumption that teens do not want to be thought of as teens, but rather young adults. Another interesting point made by the CSU of Long Beach is that the difference between YA and adult literature is that in YA, characters are discovering and pushing boundaries to discover themselves. In adult lit, characters tend to be constrained by those limits and are living within them. Personally, I don't really agree. Self-discovery is an immensely popular topic among youths and adults alike, and it can be written in different ways for different ages. Adults push boundaries, and young adults can be constrained by limits. But I can see what they're getting at, and I think in the aforementioned Reddit thread, it is worded a bit better. In the thread, a poster named Accomplished Lake 385 says it's a term for coming of age, the point where you leave all childlike things behind, which is usually 14 to 18. It's supposed to be the last book or the last series before entering the adult world, which usually isn't the case, so it is correct, and the protag is supposed to be in high school or university, and its appeal should blend both teen and adult since it's a mixture of both eras in a person's life. It's the last dream before the wake-up call. While I can find no clear credentials for this Reddit user that would make them an authority on the topic, I must say I can get on board with this explanation far more than the discovery constraint comparison. Personally, my YA novels are always coming-of-age stories, if I really think on it, and I think we can find that elsewhere as well. And coming of age is a unique developmental area that you're not really going to experience past a certain age. So what really is YA as it stands right now? We've looked at the technical definition, science, and some community chatter, and for the remainder of this series, I'm going to go ahead and say this is how I will define the genre. Young adult fiction targets readers aged 12 to 20, bridging adolescence to young adulthood. Defined by self-discovery and boundary-pushing protagonists, it often explores themes of coming of age. Despite its age range, YA literature sometimes delves into adult themes reflecting a transition period. Debates persist over its classification, with some arguing it is a marketing label catering to teens, while others see it as a bridge to adulthood, encompassing readers in their 20s and even 30s. Some may want this to be a bit more definitive, but for my purposes, I'm okay using it moving forward just to cover what we are discussing. And hey, as a deleted account on Reddit says, Jesus on a cracker, it's a marketing term, it's not that deep. Alright, so what did you think about our intro episode to this series? I hope you enjoyed it and that you're itching to get into the conversation. Like I said earlier, while I do have a plan for this series, I really want to get deeper and deeper into the world of YA until I have completely exhausted it. It is, after all, a genre that I'm part of, so why not become an authority? The research I'm doing is completed on a per-episode basis, so your comments will help to shape the directions I go in, and I really look forward to that. For some conversation starters, I mean, not that I didn't just give you one, but what are you most excited about discussing in the world of YA? Did you agree with my takes? Did you disagree? Either way, I would love to hear why. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to give this video a like before you leave, and subscribe if you haven't already. After all, you want to see part 2, right? This series will be back in a few weeks. There will be something different next week. But until then, I hope that you are having a day that is just as wonderful as you are. Bye.